Mary Sophia Money was born in approximately 1883 into a family with deep roots in the dairy trade of Surrey and South London. Her family came from Kingston Hill in Surrey. Her mother Susan raised her children largely on her own means. The family worked in the milk and dairy industry, her brothers as milk carriers. Mary herself working in a dairy shop before her skills as a bookkeeper brought her to a different kind of work altogether. Her brother Robert Henry Money was a dairy farmer on Kingston Hill. It was Robert who, approximately 15 months before Mary's death, arranged a new position for her at the dairy owned by the Bridger family on Lavender Hill in Clapham, South London. England in 1905 was a country in the final years of the Edwardian era, a world of strict social codes, rigid class distinctions, and a railway network that had transformed how people moved through the country. The railways were the arteries of Edwardian life. They connected the city to the suburbs to the countryside. Every day, millions of people boarded trains and trusted that they would arrive safely at the other end. The idea that a train carriage could be a place of danger, that the compartment door once closed was a private space in which anything might happen, was something that 1905 Britain had barely had cause to consider. The Merstham Tunnel case would change that. Mary worked as a bookkeeper at Bridger's Dairy on Lavender Hill in Clapham. She lived on the premises of the dairy with the Bridger family and her close friend and fellow employee Emma Hone. She was 22 years old. By all accounts, she was cheerful, respectable, and settled in her work. Emma Hone knew her well and described her as a young woman who did not go out with men very often, and when she did, it was only as casual friends. A young railway clerk who had walked out with Mary for about 5 years was known to the family, but he had not been a serious part of her life for some time. What was known, though kept very private, was that earlier in 1905, in March, Mary had visited the Ladies' British Protection Society and Burgess Investigation Bureau in King William Street in the City of London. She'd gone there to seek advice about love affairs that were causing her some anxiety. A man at the bureau later recalled her visit and described her manner precisely. She had said, "Like all girls, I want to be married, but I don't want to throw myself away on the first good-looking man who comes to play with me." She was a young woman with a strong sense of her own worth and a determination not to be trifled with. Whatever had been troubling her in March 1905, she had kept it almost entirely to herself. On Saturday, 23rd September 1905, the day before her death, Mary received her week's wages. She spent Sunday the 24th at the dairy with Emma Hone and other friends. She was, by all accounts, her usual cheerful self. She gave no indication of distress or anxiety. She said nothing to suggest that the evening she was planning was anything other than ordinary. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Mary told Emma Hone she was going for a little walk and would not be very long. She did not want company. She preferred to go alone. She left the dairy on Lavender Hill and made her way to Clapham Junction Station. At the station approach, she stopped at a sweet shop kept by a Miss Golding, who knew her as a regular customer. Mary bought some chocolate. She told Miss Golding she was going to Victoria, one of the main railway stations in central London. A ticket collector at Clapham Junction platform identified Mary from a photograph as a young woman he had seen at 7:20 in the evening. She told him the same thing she had told Miss Golding, that she was going to Victoria. That was the last confirmed sighting of Mary Sophia Money alive. She did not go to Victoria. The evidence gathered in the days that followed suggested that Mary had instead made her way to London Bridge or Charing Cross, and boarded the 9:33 in the evening train heading south. Police were never able to confirm which station she departed from, or who had arranged to meet her, or whether she had met someone by chance. What they could establish was what happened once she was on the train. The guard on the 9:33 service later told police that at East Croydon, he had noticed a young woman matching Mary's description seated in a first-class compartment with a young man. At South Croydon, he had seen them again, sitting close together. A signalman at Purley Oaks reported that as the train passed his signal box, he had seen a man and a woman struggling in a first-class carriage. He assumed it was amorous behavior between passengers and did not raise the alarm. Beyond the tunnel at Redhill, the guard saw a man alight from what he believed was the same compartment and walk toward the station exit. The man was described as thin, with a moustache and wearing a bowler hat. He was never traced. At 10:55 in the evening of Sunday 24th of September, 1905, Sub-Inspector William Peacock, the foreman of a gang of workmen who had entered Merstham Tunnel to carry out repair work, was walking through the tunnel when he came upon a body lying on the upside of the track, approximately 400 yards inside the entrance. The body was still warm. Peacock reported immediately to the Merstham station master. 3 constables arrived with a stretcher. The body was taken to the Feathers Inn to await an inquest. The initial assumption, as Peacock led officers to the scene, was that the woman had walked into the tunnel to commit suicide. That assumption did not survive close examination. A post-mortem told a different story entirely. The woman's body had been terribly mutilated by the passing train. Her head was smashed, her left leg severed, her left arm crushed. But it was 2 further discoveries that settled the question of murder beyond any reasonable doubt. A white silk scarf had been forced down her throat as a gag. And on the sooty walls of the tunnel, there were long claw marks and drag marks, the evidence of a violent struggle before she had gone out through the carriage door, and of a body that had been thrown outward and rebounded under the wheels. She had not been suffocated by the gag. She had been alive when she was thrown from the moving train. The post-mortem confirmed that she had put up a fight. She was strongly built, and the scratches, bruises and cuts found on her arms and face showed she had not gone without resistance. She had had a meal approximately 3 hours before her death. Her purse, which she had with her when she left Clapham, was never found. There was no money on the body, no railway ticket, no letters or papers of any kind. Only the laundry mark, number 245 on her undergarments, gave investigators anything to work with. The following afternoon, Robert Henry Money, a dairy farmer from Kingston Hill and Mary's brother, came to view the body. He identified her with considerable difficulty. He told police she was not the suicidal type. He said she had no boyfriends and was not engaged to be married. The investigation was led by Superintendent James Bryce of Surrey Police. Officers began the painstaking work of tracing Mary's movements and her associates. They questioned the young railway clerk who had walked out with her for about 5 years. He was found to have been miles away at the time of the murder and was cleared. They questioned Mary's employer and his brother, who denied any improper association with her. They searched for her predecessor as bookkeeper at the dairy, a Miss Isabel Lane believed to have knowledge of Mary's associates. It is not known whether she was ever found. Superintendent Warren of the London and South Western Railway Police carried out experiments in the tunnel using the actual carriages from the 9:33 train in an attempt to understand precisely what had happened. The inquest jury returned a verdict that surprised many who had followed the case closely. They found that Mary had met her death from severe injuries brought about by a train, but that the evidence was insufficient to show whether she had fallen or been thrown. The word murder did not appear in their verdict. The man seen leaving the train at Redhill was never found. The man seen struggling with a woman in the first-class carriage at Purley Oaks was never found. The question of who Mary had gone to meet that Sunday evening, and why she had told Miss Golding and the ticket collector she was going to Victoria when she was clearly going somewhere else entirely, was never answered. The murder of Mary Sophia Money was never solved. But the story did not end there. 7 years later, in August 1912, a fire broke out at a rented villa on Ennis Road in Eastbourne. When police entered the building, they found the bodies of a man, his wife, and one young child, and 2 other children, all murdered. A second woman, severely injured, was found alive. She had been shot twice in the neck. The man who had shot himself was known locally as Robert Hicks Murray. The investigation into Murray's identity revealed a web of extraordinary deceit. Murray had bigamously married 2 sisters, a woman named Florence and her younger sister Edith, keeping the marriages entirely secret from each other and from both families for years. He had lured both families to the villa in Eastbourne, murdered his wives and children, set the house alight, and taken his own life. When Scotland Yard investigators looked into Murray's background, they sent a letter to the investigating officer on 12th September 1912. The letter stated that the man known as Robert Hicks Murray had been positively identified as Robert Henry Money, the dairy farmer from Kingston Hill who had identified his sister Mary's body in Merstham Tunnel in 1905. When shown a photograph of the man, Florence, the surviving wife, confirmed he was her husband, Robert. The identification was disputed by one of Robert's brothers, Alfred, who did not accept it. Scotland Yard had investigated Robert Money in the original inquiry into Mary's death. He had been found to be an unscrupulous liar during that investigation. He had not been considered a strong suspect at the time, but the question of whether he had told police everything he knew about his sister's death had never been fully settled. In 1905 and again in 1912, people asked the same question. Did Robert Money tell all he knew about the death of his sister? That question has never been answered. The connection between Robert Money and Robert Hicks Murray remains speculative and unproven. What is not in dispute is that Mary Sophia Money went to meet someone on the evening of Sunday 24 September 1905. Someone she had not told her closest friend about, someone whose identity she had apparently kept entirely secret. And that person threw her from a moving train into a railway tunnel south of London. Hello everyone. Thank you for listening and drop any feedback below. I would love to hear your thoughts and hope to see you again right here on Cold Case UK.